Why do you always attract the wrong partners? You've built a career, you're doing well financially, but you end up in the same bad cycle time and time again. You find yourself in another relationship that feels draining, confusing, and you just know it's going to end up being toxic, right? But why do you keep entertaining them? Let me make this very clear. It's nothing to do with the fact that you just love them so much that you can't let them go. You're actually addicted to the toxicity and the chaos they bring. If you're new here, my name's Cully, and in this episode, I'm going to give you the three core factors on why you keep attracting the wrong people, why you entertain them, and how you can actually start to break this cycle. When you were born, imagine yourself as a blank canvas. Your parents had the responsibility of creating your blueprint through their actions and behaviors. This blueprint is your entire understanding of love and relationships. It impacts how you show up in them, what kind of behavior you accept from people, and your parents or your primary caregivers created your blueprint with their words, their actions, how they treated you, and how they treated each other. Did they provide love and affection, or was there abuse and chaos? Or was there a combination of the two? And that's to yourself and to each other. Were they emotionally and physically present? All of these things have created your blueprint. This is also how your attachment style is formed, which is the foundation of your romantic relationships for the rest of your life. Now, in a perfect world, you would get what's called a secure attachment. This means that your parents were consistent and loving. When you were scared, you would have been comforted. You were nurtured, even when making a mistake. If you accidentally broke a glass or a plate, instead of being called stupid or shouted at, you would have been told it's okay. Accidents happen. They would have made sure that you weren't hurt, and they probably would have showed you how to clean the glass up safely. People with this blueprint tend to build healthy relationships because they expect respect and they give it back as standard. They're not afraid of closeness or independence, but when they are disrespected or when they do see the red flags, which is usually at the beginning, they know how to walk away sooner rather than later. But if your parents were living from their own traumatized childhoods, they may have unintentionally created an unsecure attachment in you. Now, this episode isn't going too deep into attachment styles, but here's a quick overview if you're not aware of them. First up is the anxious attachment style. This happens if your caregiver was inconsistent with love, affection, or presence. Sometimes they were loving, other times they were distant or cold. You never knew which version of mum or dad you were going to get. Now, this would have created confusion and deep-rooted anxiety in your nervous system. You would have learned that you have to be a certain way in order to be loved or given attention. This would have also created your fear of abandonment, and one of the main reasons you've become a people pleaser. You see, you have this desire to be loved, which is actually higher than your levels of self-love. So you people please in the hopes that they will love you. Then you've got the avoidant attachment style. Now, this usually comes from parents or caregivers who were consistently distant or cold. Now, when you cried as a child, you may have been shouted at or hit for crying. Maybe you were told to stop being so sensitive. Boys don't cry, big girls don't cry. You would have been conditioned to believe that feelings are a problem and they cause more issues in the house. For example, it's your fault that dad is angry. So if you would have heard that in childhood, you wouldn't feel safe now expressing your needs as an adult. And this can make romantic relationships feel suffocating. You'll push people away, prefer casual flings, or even sabotage a good thing out of fear because the closeness is just too much for you. You'll also show signs of being a workaholic or being really successful in your career because you know it can't hurt you. And then there's the disorganized attachment style, often rooted in a chaotic and unsafe childhood. This is where your parents or caregivers, who were not only your safety, but they were also the source of your fear and your danger. This blueprint is a total mess. You have the underlying belief that you know you need people to survive in life, but the people you get close to hurt you. So you keep a wall up and no one really knows the real you. As an adult, this leads to a confusing push-pull dynamic in relationships. You crave closeness and intimacy, but you're also terrified of it. And you might find yourself in one dramatic relationship after another because the chaos unfortunately feels normal. You grew up in it. It has become your blueprint. Now, whichever attachment style you lean towards, understand that your nervous system and your inner child doesn't look for what's safe and healthy. It looks for what's familiar. If your blueprint was created in chaos or in emotional distance, you will unconsciously seek out partners who recreate those same feelings and chaos. It's not a choice, it's literally your wiring. Now, the second reason is that you might be stuck in a trauma bond. Have you ever met someone and felt this intense connection? A connection you just can't explain, but it feels like fireworks, all for it to eventually end in complete disaster. That, my friends, was not love. That was a trauma bond. A trauma bond is a psychological and energetical connection created by a cycle of mistreatment, disrespect, and often abuse, followed by moments of kindness, remorse, and love bombing, just like what you would have seen in your childhood. If you grew up where a parent was loving one moment but cruel the next, your nervous system has learnt to link attachment with inconsistency and uncertainty. So you had to somehow make sense of all of this. So what you would have done is internalize the blame and start telling yourself, if I was a better child, maybe they wouldn't treat me this way. And then that carries on into your adult relationships. And just like that, a trauma bond is created. Love gets tangled up with pain, and then a trauma bond becomes home to a nervous system that was raised in chaos. Now, consciously, you know it's not right and you know it's not what you want, but your nervous system and your inner child thinks it's normal. And if you're not careful, it can become addictive. Firstly, there's this intense chemistry, physically and mentally, the love bombing, the hours on the phone, the physical side is usually incredible, but then the abuse and the disrespect kicks in, the yelling, the criticism, the silent treatments, the manipulation, the gaslighting, and then the cycle repeats back to love bombing. This creates fear and lack of safety in the nervous system, and you're slowly becoming addicted. It's no different to a smoker needing their next nicotine hit or an alcoholic needing their next drink. They know they shouldn't be doing it and it's harming them, but they're addicted. Someone in a trauma bond will often defend their partner too. They'll say, you don't get it. When they're good, they're amazing. But really, they're justifying the bad because your desire to be loved is higher than your self-love. The third reason you find yourself in toxic relationships is your self-worth. Imagine your self-worth and self-esteem as water in a cup. In a healthy childhood, that cup is filled with water via love and validation. You're taught that your feelings matter, you're encouraged and you're nurtured. You're celebrated for your results and achievements. And when you make a mistake, instead of being punished or belittled, you're shown love and understanding. You're shown how to fix your mistakes. Someone with a full cup of water grows into an adult who doesn't need someone else's approval. They enter relationships to share their life, not to beg for validation. But what if you grew up with critical or neglectful parents? You would have grown up with the belief that you are not enough. And so many of my clients struggle with this, and it's rooted in your childhood. If the people who were supposed to love you unconditionally made you feel like you were not enough, you would have carried that belief into your adult life. And if your self-worth is so low, you'll spend your life looking for someone, anyone, to love you. And this is where toxic people, gaslighters, the manipulators, the narcissists, whatever you want to call them, this is where they thrive. They are actual masters at spotting a person with low self-esteem or self-worth. They'll start with the love bombing. They'll shower you with praise and love and affection. And to someone who's never received that validation, it feels like finding water in a desert. You think, finally, someone sees me. But it's not real, because once you're hooked, the abuse begins. The constant validation disappears and the toxic cycle begins. They'll start to criticize you. They'll devalue you. They'll make you feel insecure. And they do this to keep you off balance. So you are constantly fighting for their approval. Essentially, they become the gatekeeper of your self-worth, and they're using it to control you because your self-worth is already so low. Their disapproval feels heartbreaking. It triggers your childhood wounds of not being good enough or being abandoned. So you end up walking on eggshells. You lose yourself. You apologize for things that are not even your fault. And you do it because the thought of them withdrawing their love, that little trickle of poisoned water, feels like you might actually die without it. People with low self-esteem are also terrible at setting boundaries. You might not even know what a healthy boundary looks like. If you were taught that your needs don't matter, you won't know how to stand up for them as an adult. You won't even know what your needs are. You might accept disrespect or neglect because deep down you believe it's all you deserve. And there are three factors that you need to take into consideration if you're truly going to understand why you attract these kind of partners, why you entertain them, and if you're actually going to break this cycle. Because attracting them and entertaining them are two very different things, right? So the first factor is your relationship with your mum, all right, between the ages of 4 and 10 years old. Now, fellas, this is the most important relationship for yourselves. Second is your relationship with your father, again between the ages of 4 and 10 years old. And ladies, this is the most important relationship for yourselves. And then the third factor is the relationship dynamic you witnessed in your childhood between mum and dad, again between the ages of 4 to 10 years old. Now, when I say the relationship dynamic between mum and dad, what I mean is whether they showed each other love and affection or if it was a home full of abuse and chaos. Were they emotionally and physically available, or were they emotionally and physically distant? Did they energetically create enough safety for you and your nervous system to develop as a child into a teenager, into an adult in a healthy way? And if they didn't, then that is why you attract and entertain the partners that you do. That's all I've got for you today. If you got some value out of this episode, check this episode out here where I talk about trust issues and self-betrayal. I'll see you in the next one.